Okay, next thing we're going to do is put these little linkage balls here on the end of the grips. First thing what we're going to do is put some thread lock. Anytime you're doing metal into metal, be sure to use some T43. What I like to do is just put some in a bag so I can roll around in here, make sure it gets in the thread. And you don't want it to be too goopy. It doesn't matter so much on this part because there's no chance of getting this into a bearing or anything, but you have to be careful when you're running screws through bearings, and you don't want to have them all gooped up with thread lock and cause your bearings to lock up. So I just kind of get it on there, get it on my finger. You can see the blue on the end. Looks good. Put that on the blade grip. Make sure you just get it in there nice and straight. Get it kind of tight. Tighten it a little bit. Pull it out. Put it to the side, and you're good with that. Got the second one here. Straight in. Nice and tight. Okay. Put those to the side. You're going to let them dry. In the bag, you've also got these long screws. These are going to go into the grips for holding the blades on. So you're going to put these to the side. You're not going to use them for quite some time. So that kind of stuff, I like to put things in a tin. So I've got this old Scorpion ASC tin. I'm just using that to hold on to these parts. Got the screws for the spindle all cleaned off with alcohol and everything, and like I said, packed up my thrust bearings. You want to get grease packed on the inside of these and get them cleaned off. And I've arranged the thrust bearing parts just like it says here in the manual. There's spindle, bearing, spacer, then another, the spacer, the bearing, another spacer, the inside thrust bearing, race, and then the thrust bearing, and then the outer race. Now the kit I had already had the spacer and the bearings inside the grips. So these bearings are already set in here, good to go. So what I'm going to do is, you want to make sure you get thread lock here on the screw that's going to be holding the grips in. It's very important. Never forget your thread lock. T43 is what we're using. And again, you're going to be going through some bearings with this one, so you use your finger and just kind of roll it around. You can tell just by looking at it that you've got the thread lock in there on the ends, just the way it should be. Then what you're going to do is, first one here is the outer. Put that one on the screw. Then you want to make sure the ball races are going to be towards the inside, towards the center of the spindle. So put this down here. It's got the out, and then you've got the pack part facing to where it's going to go in towards the center. Okay, because as it moves around, the centrifugal force wants to keep the grease packed in there. Then you want to go for the in ball race. Make sure everything's lined up nicely. Take your time and do it right. This is also a 3mm hex screw that we're using. Then we want the spacer. So we double check, make sure we've got everything the way it says here. Oh wait, see, we're missing the washer. And more importantly, it's good about double checking. So NH2C, that's what we've got coming out of here. Yes, and we've got the button, put that to the side as well. The sleeve, which might as well just put inside of the head right now. You've got the sleeve coming out, put that inside there, put that to the side. Also has the dampeners. The gray ones are softer than the black ones. Black ones are more intended for 3D, you know, if you want faster pitch changes. I'm going to use the black ones for that. Put the other ones away. We're not going to be using those. This screw that's going to be going into the spindle. Okay, make sure you got the washer on there first. And then after you've got the washer on, you put the one that says out, and then the thrust bearing, and then the in, and then the spacer. And oh, one more thing, it says that you want to put grease on the feathering shaft. So we're going to put some grease here on the end. Just another added way to keep everything moving smoothly. Kind of like to rub it on there a little bit on the end. After that, get the screw worked in just a little bit. Then I like to push all these components down, all these little parts, to the end of the spindle. There's going to be room with the spacer, but the thrust bearings, you're going to want to make sure they're on there just right. Screw this in. We're going to get it much tighter later once we've got it inside the head. But you just want to make sure, you know, everything's fitting together perfectly. You don't want anything to get caught, so you want everything moving smooth. Then we're going to put it inside the grip. Like I said, we've already got the bearing and the spacer in there. It came from the factory like that. Oh. Don't let this spacer come out. That's very important. Put that through here. I want to make sure everything just goes in nice and smooth. The metal stuff just seems to fit better than the plastic stuff did for me, compared to, you know, the old other kits. So, you know, that's moving nice and smooth. It's going in perfectly. Then we put this, actually before we do that, we want to put our dampeners in here. There's a flat side and a slightly skewed side of the dampener. You're going to put the flat side in, and we already put the sleeve in the head as well. Push that in nice. Do that on the other side as well. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm going to push, oh wait, almost forgot one thing. There's this little copper spacer now that you put between, it's going to be the grip and then the copper spacer, and then it's going to start with the head. So you put this guy on here, little copper spacer. Get it worked in just a little bit. I always find the best, most uniform way to push it in is control it with your hex driver. Push it in nice and smooth. A little twisting, turning helps out. Tricky part, you want to make sure you kind of holding this other dampener in while you're doing that. It's okay if it slips out a little bit, you can just work it back down. You want to make sure everything's uniform, everything's moving great. You can push in as much as you can. Grip's moving nice and smooth, exactly how you want it so far. Now that we've got that one worked in, I'm going to get the dampener worked in there. A great way to get it worked in, kind of use some pliers. You don't want to cut anything, so you want to be careful to do this right. And then, you know, you're going with the same order, just like it says here in the manual. We've got this grip in already, so make sure we put the copper slider in there once we've got our dampener and then copper slider. Now we want to put some grease on here. Copper, and just like we did on the other side, some grease. Work it in there nice. Then we start with the grip. Put the grip in there. And then once again, I get this guy ready to go. Be sure to get the thread lock on the end. So I'm going to do that, dip him in some thread lock. Move it around here. Finger, make sure it's not, you know, gushing out of the end there. Wipe the excess stuff off. Kind of run through it again and make sure it's on there, but you don't want it to lock up your bearings. Then same thing, washer. Don't forget the washer. The out, the one that's going to go on the outside. Then you want to make sure you put the thrust bearing on here. Like I said, just like last time, you want the packed part facing inside, part that's packed with grease, then the in, which is going to be on the inside, and then this other little spacer. And now that we've got that prepped and ready to go, set it down there carefully. I've got another 3mm. What I like to do is put that in here just to hold it in place. There we go. Got this thing packed. And I like to hold it up, just kind of put this in here. Run it into the end, and you can just start screwing it in. Just get a couple screws. Work all the parts in. Let gravity work with you. You know, hammer that down so that the thrust bearings and everything are in there. You want to make sure everything's aligned correctly, because you want things to move smoothly. You know. Keep checking, make sure you've got everything nice and smooth, and you want to both sides at the same time. And this it's very important that these are nice and tight. You're gonna have some head speed going, so don't be a wuss. This is you've got really strong screws, really fat size 3mm, so give it some good torque, nice and tight, and then double check. Make sure these are moving perfectly. You don't want any locking. If you get some locking up, then there could be a chance that inside here everything isn't lined up correctly. Take it apart, make sure it's all lined up and pushed up against the spindle, and that both sides are moving correctly and it's nice and tight. You know, you don't want any play in here.